Excellent. Thank you very much. I think we will get started shortly. I'm going to get a signal right now, but I see we are still counting up, people still joining. And I see my friends from Japan, Nanai-san. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. The Mutainai campaign, South Africa's in the house. Francesca, I see you. Wonderful. Elvin from Kisii, Lisa from Vermont, the Greenbelt Movement International, also co-hosting this event with us. Thank you, Lisa. There you are, Fiona from Canada. I see Sydney. I see you, Fiona, from the UK, from France, from Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the world in the house. Thank you very much for taking this day to be with us. I think we will start because we have so much in store for the day. So let us just get started with those, and others will continue joining, and also to remind them that we are live streaming onto Facebook. Thank you everybody for joining, and welcome to Wangari Mathai Courageous Leadership. My name is Wanjira Mathai, and I am the Vice President and Regional Director for the World Resources Institute. I also chair the Wangari Mathai Foundation, and I'm just delighted to be moderating our discussion today. We started this webinar series almost a year ago in commemoration of Wangari Mathai's 80th birthday year. She turned 81. She would have turned 81 this April, and as a reflection, this was one of the webinars we started, conversations on leadership to address unprecedented challenges in the world today. And each webinar built on the other. We fed in and listened and built one on the other. Thank you for joining us in this conversation with 4 amazing climate activists. I want to invite them to turn their videos on. Elizabeth Wathuti from Kenya, Vanessa Nakate from Uganda, Olumide Idowu from Nigeria, and Greta Thunberg from Sweden. Thank you both so much. I will not, all of you so much. I will not read their bios, but they will be posted in the chat. Please take a look at them and learn more about their backgrounds, their activism, their stories, and we will carry on. I also want to introduce, we have here today Professor Youba Sokona, who's over 40 years of addressing climate, energy, sustainable development in Africa today puts him at the heart of climate science globally. And we are honored that you're here with us today, Youba. And to our wonderful audience, welcome. And I hope you interact in the chat, send us your questions as we go along, and we'll try and get to as many of them. And I want to thank the team who will be sifting through them and making sure that we capture as many as possible. And finally, just a reminder to all of you, as you post your questions, Youba and Greta are happy to be here and will share their reflections, but they would like to see most of the questions directed to Vanessa, to Olumide, and to Liz. So please direct most of those questions and ask them, listen keenly, and we will prioritize those in the questions and answers today. So ladies and gentlemen, same storm, different boats, telling the Africa climate story. This year, at least for me, and even the last, has been consequential with respect to the climate crisis, racial injustice, the COVID pandemic, and of course, climate change, which all of us know will be bigger than any of these in terms of its impact on all of us. Think about it. All 3 major shocks are in the process of very divergent narratives of recovery. Nevertheless, concern about the planet in particular and what it means for all of us as a species is on an all-time high, and voices that were inaudible before and even sidelined are beginning to break through. And this includes voices like those you will hear today. But the reality is, while we are in the same storm, we are definitely not in the same boat. Some of us are in big boats with powerful engines, comfortable cabins to sleep in, and plenty of life support systems should they be needed. But others are in much smaller boats and very few supplies. And some of these boats even have holes in the bottom and are starting to leak. Still others are clinging to whatever they can find to help them stay afloat. The vast majority are even lacking the kind of equipment that's needed. And their cries will need to be helped. We all need to be together and to hold each other in solidarity. I want to start by inviting you, Greta. Would you agree with that framing?
Yes, most definitely. We are facing an existential crisis. And of course, this crisis affects everyone. But like you say, we have all very different circumstances and we are sitting in very different boats. And I'm indeed one of those who are sitting in one of the most comfortable boats. So therefore, I'm not the one who mostly should be listened to, but rather if we are to solve the climate crisis, it is absolutely crucial that we listen to those voices who need to be heard the most. Africans are in general those who have contributed the least to the climate crisis, and yet are among those who will be hit the absolute hardest by it. And yet you are also the ones leading the fight against the climate crisis. So therefore I cannot stress how important it is that we listen to the African voices and that we tell the African stories. And I think it is about time that we pass over the mic. So, yeah.
Thank you, Greta, and so graciously always passing over the mic. I want to go next to Professor Youba Sokona. Youba, you have been the vice chair of the IPCC for a good while, and you also co-chaired the IPCC Working Group on Mitigation of Climate Change. How are we doing? What is the latest, and what's Africa's prospects going forward?
Thank you, Wanjira. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this very important conversation. Let me just start to highlight some of the key findings of the IPCC assessment report and what that means for Africa and the implication also for Africa. The IPCC, as you know, is funded back to 1988. It's a UN body responsible for assessing scientific knowledge about climate change over the past 33 years. The IPCC has gone through 5 complete assessment cycles, and the IPCC report are some of the most widely reviewed scientific document ever produced by hundreds of scientists from countries across the world, selected based on their relevant expertise. In the current 6th cycle, 3 special reports have already been published. Global warming of 1.5, climate change and land, the second one, and then the third one, climate change, ocean, and cryosphere. And let me just highlight some of the key messages that can come, because it's 1,000 pages, but I will just bring them, condense them in a few lines. The 1.5 report indicated clearly that every bit of warming matters. It is not because Africa is not emitting a lot of greenhouse gases that the emission from Africa does not matter. Every bit of warming matters. Second is every year matters, because the more we wait, any second we wait, and that will have huge implications. And every choices matter, even at individual level. I can make a choice for my mobility, and then I have different choices, and then this is very important. And then the land report, clearly land is where we are living, and land is undergoing a human pressure, and land is part of the responses, but land cannot do it all. Because, and we know also that Africa is a big and diverse continent, and land and ecosystem play important role, particularly on food production. And then the third report, Ocean and Cryosphere, clearly indicated that they sustain us, they are under pressure, and then their changes affect all our lives. And the time for action is now. And then those are some of the key messages that came from those three recent reports. And what do we know? And the world has warmed by about 1 degree over the past 150 years. We're experiencing actually all the problem we're experiencing is only 1 degree warming. We are over the past 150 years. And heading for about 3 degrees of by 2100, more after that, if we are in the business as usual scenario. And then warming is already affecting lives, livelihood, and ecosystem around the world. I usually indicate to many people that any African who has 40 years and above don't need science and then to see and then to know that climate is changing, climate have changed. And what do we know about Africa? Part of Africa have warmed by more than 1.5 degrees in this global level on the 1 degrees. And 3.8% share the global carbon dioxide emission in Africa. Increase exposure and vulnerability, people and ecosystems, extra burden of climate that related to poverty, health, lack of infrastructure, conflict, so on and so forth. And fastest is urbanization, because also is one of the alarming issues related to also to climate. Opportunity for climate, resilient development, low carbon development in Africa, there is a huge opportunity, and then we'll come back to that later on. And what are we already seeing, and what is already happening in the continent? Over the past decades, temperatures have been rising at about twice the global rate, more frequent and more intense heat-related events and heat wave, more extreme rainfalls, both heavy rain and more severe and longer drought, severe cyclones. Africa as a whole is a climate change hotspot. All the wonderful ecosystems across Africa are facing extreme challenges. Arid, dry areas are growing and shifting. Cooler zones are shrinking and shifting to higher altitudes and higher latitudes in the continent. Severe degradation of drylands, biodiversity loss, species extinction is fast growing. Oases are becoming too dry and hot for traditional crops. I can go on and go on. We know that climate change is already affecting people's lives and livelihood around the world, and here in Africa, even at just 1 degree warming. And then everything is related to that. And then the biggest climate change impacts can be seen in the food, agriculture, and health sector, with knock-on effect on poverty, the economy, migration, and conflicts. Food security will be increasingly affected by future climate change through yield declines, especially in the tropics, increased prices, reduced nutrient quality, and supply chain disruption. Those are some of the elements we may see. In Africa, there are many examples where climate-related change and extreme events often together with human activities have started a cascade of knock-on effects where impact lead to another, such as desertification, flooding, ocean change. We have to have in mind that climate is not changing in isolation of other changes on society of ecosystems. And then we cannot deal with climate change only in isolation of those other changes that are affecting the ecosystem and human systems. And in that context, as articulated in many of the IPCC reports, low carbon and climate resilient development is one of the way to go. And as articulated as in the IPCC report on 1.5 indicated, and then in order to keep the warming to 1.5, and then this is currently not impossible. It's possible, but in many parts of the world, it will require unprecedented transition in all aspects of the society, including on energy, on land, urban infrastructure, and industrial system. And then this is where, in the African context, sorry, as we are in the early stage of development, and then we can, in the African context, benefit from the later comers, because our energy infrastructure need to be built. Our agricultural system need to be put in place. Our urbanization is growing, but it's in place. We can anticipate most of the problems. And then the new stock of housing is much more important than existing. And then the mobility system also need to be put in place. And it's possible that in the African context, if we have the right policy and then to tackle those different issues. Let us take the case of energy. And then as we know, Africa is one of the few regions, the only region, there is a growing use of firewood and charcoal for cooking. And I think that if we are serious about climate change issues, we may make a commitment by 2030 and then to completely phase out the use of charcoal and firewood, because that's mostly in the capital cities. And it's possible actually with solar, and then going from the charcoal and firewood to electricity for cooking. Technically it's possible, economically it's possible, and then if we have the right policy in place, and then that is possible. This is the first and foremost urgent energy transition that is needed at global level. And then I can detail that also if you wish. And it's possible also in the context that tackling climate can go hand in hand of our pressure, our societal urgent needs, such as poverty, inequality, and different other things if we have the right policy in place. And let us just look to conclude, let us just look at some of the features that are articulated by the African leaders. Their Agenda 2063 that was conceived in 2013, and Agenda 2030 that was conceived in 2015 echo what the Agenda 2063 have articulated. It talks about the development aspiration. It talks about how making development more sustainable, and then this compatible with the climate if you have the right policy. And you as a youth, you as a generation that will be there, and then to see if you have achieved or not. And then you have to take a fundamental, a critical role on that, provided that we have adequate, a strong leadership with a clear vision, provided that we have a clear institutions, and then that can translate those visions in a concrete action, provided that we have resources to do it. And the resources mean human resources, and we have to start mobilizing the resources in the continent, not building resources for the first start. In many discourses, we said capacity building. No, we need to mobilize the capacity first, and then to see where capacity is lacking, then we can talk about building. Financial resources are very important also. And lastly, and then we need, and then to bring together the short-term tension, the immediate need of the people, how to feed them, how to get the shelter, how to get them housing, how to get them mobility on the long-term issues that relate to the climate. And those are some of the issues I just wanted to highlight in order to stimulate the conversation. Thank you for listening.
Youba, thank you for that. Sobering in many ways. Africa doing very little as an emitter, but yet facing such grim, you mentioned temperatures have been rising and will 2 times. Africa, a climate change hotspot, severe degradation, unprecedented transitions going on around energy, agriculture, etc. And I really like what you said. these young people will lead us into the future. I want to turn to the panelists now, and I'm really happy that Elizabeth Wathuti from Kenya is here, Vanessa Nakate from Uganda, and Olumide Idowu from Nigeria. I want to ask Elizabeth first. You are a passionate environmentalist, Liz, and you are action-oriented. I know your work, and in all the work that you do with children and in protecting green spaces in cities. You heard the latest from Youba. How does that make you feel listening to it? What does that mean for Africa?
Thank you so much, Wanjira. It is so disturbing to even think the fact that the scientific community has continued to sound this alarm and we're still not doing enough. And what is happening is that this burden is being placed upon those who have the least capacity to adapt, and also those who have got the least resources to fight the climate crisis. We don't see much action happening, yet millions of people are directly affected. They're losing their lives, they're losing their livelihoods. They are directly being impacted. And at the end of the day, we don't see much happening. And this also reminds me of the connection that I have always had with the natural world as a young child, because I grew up in the most forested region in Kenya. And seeing the fact that I have had this strong connection with the forests, with the rivers, and today all of these natural systems are becoming something that we don't want to have in the future. And I've felt so much heartbroken witnessing deforestation at first hand, and also seeing the waterways around the world, the lakes, the rivers, and the oceans also becoming what I like to call a soup of poison flowing with plastic waste. These are things that really hurt me the most, because nature has always been a part of me, and I have always been a part of nature. And to see the world not seeing nature as a part of us is really heartbreaking for me. And I feel nature's pain every day. And I would wish for the world to feel this pain and also make sure that we are doing something to change this planet for the better. Because at the end of the day, everything is all connected. You cannot protect the natural world without confronting the threats that face it at the end of the day. This is also about the civil rights, it's about education, it's about racial justice, it's about poverty, it's about democracy. It's about how our actions today are going to impact the world for the next generations. And unless we begin to become conscious about how we will leave this planet for the next generations, then it's going to become so difficult for us to solve the climate crisis. And so for me, every day I pass by a place, on every day I watch documentaries or even see the wild forests being destroyed at alarming rates. And the way our ecosystems are being destroyed each and every day really pains my heart every day. And I hope that everyone can learn to live on this planet, not for our own selves, but learn to live in this planet in a way that our actions are going to positively impact the planet for the next generations. Because I want to have a livable world. We all want to have a livable world. But at the end of the day, what we are doing to our planet today, what we are doing to our ecosystems, what we are doing to our forests, our waterways, and our ecosystems is not going to help us get to the kind of future that we all envision and we all want to see. So if we have to solve the climate crisis, then we cannot erase all of these things from the conversation. We have to recognize the fact that this planet was borrowed from our children. And at the end of the day, we have to make sure that every action that we are doing today impacts this planet for the next generations. And so I really feel overwhelmed every time that action is delayed, because at the end of the day, this is continuing to risk the lives and the livelihoods of millions of people around the world. And just because the climate crisis is not happening where you are, it doesn't mean that it's not happening at all. There are people that are impacted each and every day, and we have clearly heard all of this from Professor Youba as he was laying out the science. So I really hope that we can continue to include all of this in the conversations towards solving the climate crisis.
Liz, thank you for sharing so passionately in the vulnerability and sharing those feelings with us. I can feel it. And you used overwhelmed, pain. Those are strong words. And how has that then turned into a response, Liz? How are you responding to what you're seeing and what you don't like?
So I have been responding to this by participating in nature regeneration, and also making sure that I am on the forefront in fighting to make sure that the world has all its natural ecosystems stay intact. Because at the end of the day, we are regenerating nature, but we cannot forget the fact that all our carbon sinks and all our ecosystems have to stay intact at the end of the day. And I have also been focusing on nurturing young people to have the same love and connection for nature, because my connection with the natural world at a young age is what made me develop that anger whenever I would see things that are hurting the planet, whenever I would see things that are hurting my ecosystem. And this anger did not stop at the anger, because it gave me a hunger to want to do something about these challenges. And this is where really I'm taking this conversation with the young generation, that we should stop at the anger. It should cause us to step up, take lead, and make sure that we are calling on everyone to participate in being the change that they want to see. And I've also been participating in tree growing, because at the end of the day, it is not just about planting trees, it's about making sure that the trees that are being planted around the world are getting to be nurtured and grown up to maturity, because that exactly is what impact is. And at the end of the day, also making sure that we are not diminishing to growing trees, that we are also protecting the high carbon sinks, because it is one to young people taking up leadership and actually acting on the solutions we talk about every day. And it is another to see our leaders around the world taking up different steps as well to, in a way, demean what they're trying to do. And I think this question also reminds me of an act that we did this year on Valentine's Day, where we stepped up to the city in Nairobi to hang love hearts to trees that had been marked for felling. And for us, it was really exciting. We felt so much hope at the end of the day doing that exercise. And we felt that Mother Nature really appreciated what we did. And then 2 weeks after what we had done, we received photos from our friends that the trees that we were hanging love hearts to, and telling our leaders that these trees are not just trees, they give us the oxygen, they help the air quality become more conducive for us. And at the end of the day, these trees had all been felled down, and we had to go there and confirm that indeed the trees were felled. And this was so heartbreaking to see that we are trying to make a difference. We are trying to shape our future into what we want to see. But at the end of the day, the actions that we are seeing from the people in power really continue to heartbreak us. They continue to, make us at some point feel hopeless, but we are not stopping at that. And that's why we continue every day to find hope and to be positive, because this is our future and we cannot watch it get down to the drain.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for that. We'll come back to you. Vanessa, I want to come to you. You heard as well what Youba presented and the picture for Africa, despite our very little responsibility. How does that make you feel? And what would you share?
Thank you, Wanjira. Well, it makes me feel sad to think that, those who are at the front lines are the least responsible for the climate crisis. And it scares me to think that these disasters are only going to become worse in our communities and across the African continent. And it's already evident that the climate crisis is already here. It's evident that 1.2 degrees is hell for many people, as we've seen disasters, reap and ravage different parts of the African continent. If I'm to give examples from where I come from in Uganda, we've seen massive floods and landslides in the western parts of the country and also the eastern parts of the country that have caused massive destruction, massive loss of lives, and left people with pain, left people with agony, left people with nothing. And to think about the glaciers at the Rwenzori Mountains, they are not visible anymore because they are melting. And when I go, beyond my country, Uganda, we saw the locust invasion in Kenya that, destroyed a number of crops and caused, food insecurity. And also the floods that we saw in Kenya, we saw in 2019, the cyclone that ripped apart different parts of Mozambique, and over 1,300 people were declared, dead, and some more declared missing. And we've seen, the droughts also in the southern part of the continent. So everything, they explain as an impact of climate change, we have already seen in the African continent, from the droughts to the floods, to the landslides, to the melting of the ice, and, to the hurricanes, heat waves. We've seen all that. But what is, so disturbing about this is that we are not seeing, the action that we hope to see. We are not seeing leaders do what we are asking them to do, because this is something that is impacting, people's lives right now. I loved how Professor Youba made the intersection of climate change and every other sector of our lives. I think it's time for, people to realize that this is more than weather. This is about the people being impacted, to realize that we won't be able to, eradicate poverty in different parts of the continent without climate justice. We won't be able to achieve, zero hunger while millions of people are being left with no food as their farms are being destroyed. We won't be able to see gender equality. All efforts, to achieve gender equality are put, to nothing when the climate crisis occurs. As we all know that in most of our societies, women and girls are at the front lines. They're the front lines when these disasters occur. They're the ones on the farms. They're the ones collecting the water. They are the ones collecting the firewood when these disasters occur. So this climate disasters, they exacerbate the already existing inequalities in our societies. And that is why we need action, right now. When I think about all those things, what has been happening, what is happening right now, and what to expect in the future, it really scares me to walk into a future, that seems to be destructive, a future that seems to, to have nothing. Because if we are seeing a present that is catastrophic, if we are seeing lives being lost right now, if we are seeing girls dropping out of schools right now, girls being forced into early marriages right now, if we are seeing, women face massive gender-based violence because of these disasters, food prices going high, etc. If we're seeing these things right now, there is no way we can be convinced that we are not going to see those things in the future that we are walking into, unless we see the action from the leaders. But we are not seeing that. So it's kind of, it's very frustrating to think about what is happening right now and how little action is being put into place.
Vanessa, thank you so much. That, you paint a very, as you say, sad to see the beauty of Uganda before your very eyes. Almost everything you've mentioned as a reflection has to do with disappearing beauty. And I like what you said about this is not about weather, it's about people. Vanessa, I want to ask you how you're responding to all of this and how you're deciding to take action.
Well, my very first response was by joining the Fridays for Future climate strikes and doing this every Friday. And when I realized that I couldn't get, as many people to join as possible, because it's very hectic and hard for us to organize big strikes in my country, that is when I moved into schools and holding teach-ins with students and talking to them about what, climate change really is, not, the theoretical education that we are given about climate change. Many times when you go to schools and ask students about what they understand about climate change, they'll tell you average weather conditions over a long period of time, and that's it. They won't be able to explain that, the droughts are connected to climate change, or the landslides, or the floods, etc. So through these teachings, we are able to make students understand what climate change really is and how they can use their voices to help us demand for action. And this is through creating this awareness with their families, with their friends, with their schoolmates and all that. And I've also started a project that involves installation of solar panels and eco-friendly stoves in schools. Like Professor Youba said, a lot of trees are being cut down for firewood, so that food can be prepared. And we've had interactions, with the teachers, and they understand that trees are being cut down, but they'll ask you, do you expect us to leave the students hungry since we don't have alternatives? So through this project, we have an alternative, the eco-friendly stoves, and these stoves reduce on the amount. They don't completely eliminate, but they greatly reduce on the amount of firewood that schools use in preparation of food in a term. And also we've had a lot of solutions about renewable energy, solar energy, but the fact is not everyone is able to afford or access these things. Not everyone is able to access these things. So we try to get these solar panels on schools in Uganda so that they can have an easy transition to renewable energy. And so far we've done installations in 11 schools, and we hope to cover more schools as time goes on. And the other thing I've done, I've worked with other activists in the Rise Up movement on a number of campaigns. And right now we've been working on a campaign to stop the East Africa crude oil pipeline, because we feel like it doesn't make sense, to have a construction of a pipeline when we are in a climate and ecological crisis right now. And we realize how this pipeline threatens livelihoods of many people. Many people are going to be displaced. Many people are going to be affected. It's going to destroy a number of farms, causing food insecurity in those regions. It's going to go through a number of wildlife habitats like Murchison Falls, Bugoma Forest. So all these ecosystems are in danger because of this pipeline. And it's going to go through over 200 rivers. It's going to go through Lake Victoria, and over 40 million people depend on the fresh waters of Lake Victoria. So we've also been, doing some work around that to try and, stop the construction of this pipeline, as we see it is an environmental disaster for the people and also for the planet.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was really powerful, and thank you for what you are doing. Olumide, I want to come to you. When I heard you talking about the air pollution challenge, I was really inspired. Your passion, your commitment to this, you co-founded the International Climate Change Development Initiative and working with youth. How does it feel to hear what Youba presented, and from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much, Wanjira. Let me first of all say thank you to Prof for giving that lovely introduction into the climate crisis and what it actually meant for Africa. I'm from Lagos, one of the biggest city, let me say, in Western Africa. And I can tell you that the issue of pollution has been a norm, like it happens like daily because of the pollution. But basically, we also start to now look at what the solution is to look like. So my city, Lagos, is facing a major ecological risk. And this is due to climate change. We know that Nigeria, as well as the entire African continent, has actually contributed virtually nothing to the climate crisis, but has been eating hardest. Everybody knows that, and my colleague have also made some key points on that. So the fragility of the ecosystem means in Africa, we need to adapt to the impact and damage with an uncertain future. So for us to get this and understand the climate crisis, we need to start looking at how the ecosystem looks like to us. And the current health crisis has also taught us many lessons. It has also allowed us to actually rethink how science and policies can work together to address more effectively on a global crisis. And because of this, a lot of people have started talking about solution. People are talking about alternative. And preserving humans' life has been at the top of Africa. And that is the agenda as young people, as leaders, we need to start looking at how we can preserve humans' life and how we can be the top agenda for African people and the African continent. So by addressing climate change through adaptation policies, we can equally actually improve well-being, enhance livelihood, and preserve women's life, and even actually save the economy. And this is what the health crisis have shown us. And this is the right time. We have shown that we can do it with COVID-19. And it is time we need to do it with climate change. So let us start look at how we can regenerate our mind, how we can, fix the problem, looking at the possible and the alternative solution, and start listening to the climate scientists for them to actually help us to drive more action towards climate change. Thank you.
Olumide, that's equally, I mean, I've been to Lagos, so I know what you're talking about. How are you responding to what you're facing in Lagos and within those circumstances?
Okay, basically, looking at what Nigeria looks like, Lagos especially, where I'm talking from, we have been able to mobilize and empower young people to fight for the climate crisis. And, because this is very, very important for Nigeria, with the large population we have, we've created a partnership that we call a Noiseless Lagos. And we want to start seeing how people can, think and change their attitude towards pollution. And from my organization, we've been able to establish a platform called Climate Wednesday. And this has been more than 8 years that this platform has been running. And it's set to lead youth voice on climate change. And it seeks to build this climate smart generation across the entire Africa through access to information, communication, and empowerment. And we also use this platform. We also use it to build creative dialogues on different platforms on every Wednesday. And we've been able to see a lot of solutions young people are actually talking about. And with this, we also have a network of organizations that actually do a monthly, a weekly connection with the government, because for us to drive this solution, we need to bring them in, different stakeholders. And in partnership with different young people, we have been able to also create a different dialogue that is focusing on food security, talking about moving from fossil fuel to sustainable source of energy, waste management and recycling, and many more, because all these key solutions, they need to listen to it, because young people actually drive innovations to create opportunity for themselves and to also make sure that the green economy and green recovery we are talking about, it is what is our agenda. So we also have also called for the government to actually, one of our key, from starting from last year, 2019, we have been calling on government to actually increase youth participation in climate negotiation, because most of us also need to understand what they are negotiating on behalf of us and what they actually, the policy they are putting in place and how we can drive the policy advocacy. Thank you.
Thanks, Olumide. Some of the people listening, including myself, to this conversation, and are probably young activists or young Africans who are thinking to themselves, how can I get involved? What opportunities are there? Does Vanessa, Liz, and Olumide see any windows of optimism? What are you optimistic about? What would you say to young people today who want to join the movement, and what entry points they might come into? I think, Vanessa, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Wanjira. I think we are optimistic, and that's why we continue to fight. Because if we weren't, then we would just give up and just let everything happen the way it's already happening. So I think there is really no room to not have hope, because to not have hope is actually more dangerous for us, and it would affect us more. It would mean more people are going to be affected. It would mean more people are going to lose their homes, lose their farms, and all that. And for young people out there who are looking for that window, to get in activism. Well, I won't say it's, a window, because a window may seem too small, but it's an open space. Everyone is needed in this fight for climate justice. Every voice is needed. We need to hear every story. We need to hear every experience. I may be in Uganda, but I may not clearly understand what communities in Kenya are going through, or communities in Tanzania or Nigeria are going through right now. So an activist from those areas is in a better position to speak about, what they are experiencing in their home. So I can just say that something that Greta said before: no one is too small to make a difference. So whatever voice or platform or resource that you have, you can use that, to communicate the crisis, to create awareness, to drive change in your community, regardless of how, small it is. It can still cause change, because in the end, when we put all those small actions, together, when we put all those voices together, we can actually transform the world and make it a better place for all of us.
Thank you, Vanessa. No, it's too small. Start where you are, and there's every reason to be optimistic. Thank you. Liz, over to you. What would you say to a young, someone listening right now and thinking, how can I get involved? And this is why Liz is optimistic, and we stay in.
One of the things that makes me feel optimistic every time is acknowledging those feelings of anger, the frustration, the feeling of being overwhelmed by what is happening to the planet every day, and then choosing not to stop at those feelings, but choosing to make my feelings move me into action. And that is why, like I mentioned, feeling heartbroken, seeing nature, the forest that I always spent time in as a young child being destroyed, made me angry enough to want to do something about them, made me angry enough to even start planting trees at the age of 7, made me angry enough to want to step up and speak up for the trees that are being destroyed around the world. And so one thing I would like to tell every young person is to make sure that you're present and take the lead in shaping the kind of future that you want to see. Because if we allow the future to be shaped without us, then that is shaping the future against us at the end of the day. So we have to make sure that we are being present, and we are also educating ourselves and our communities about climate change, and educating them about what they can do to adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Because we know that education at the end of the day, when it comes to the most affected, is also a huge gap. So as young people, we know this information, we have had the science, we feel that we need the urgency to take action. So let us reach out to our communities and to everyone, to our governments, to take up the steps that are needed to act on the climate crisis. And I think also the other thing that we can do is never feel like your voice or your action is too small at the end of the day. And I always like to reference from what Professor Wanjira Mathai always espoused on the power of one person, that each one of us can make a difference, but collectively we are a force. So we are feeling overwhelmed every day. We are angry, we are frustrated. All of these things are making us feel as though the future is not certain. And we can use these feelings to now move into action and change and take necessary steps that are needed to change this planet for the better. And I think also, most importantly, do not struggle alone. Work with others who want to protect the environment. There are so many people around the world who are changing this planet for the better. And I do believe that our voices and our actions are definitely, at the end of the day, going to shape the kind of planet that we want to see, because we cannot sit back and watch our planet get down to the drain. We have to be the hummingbirds, like Professor Wanjira Mathai always said. We have to step up and make sure that we are holding everyone accountable for how they're going to leave this planet for the next generations.
Thank you, Liz. So powerful that together we are a force. Each one of us can make a difference. I love it. Olumide, what about you? What would you say are your points of optimism and how young people can engage?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to my colleague for that very good point. For me, to young people, don't give up. We have the power to hold the leaders to account. You know, the climate crisis is already impacting our lives, and we need to address it as a crisis if we are to safeguard our future. It is fundamentally unjust that we have to suffer for the sins of our old generation or for the impact that we are seeing. And like one of my mentors always say, anything for us without us is not for us. Fellow young Africans, please let us take all things we talk about, put them into action as we are doing it in our respective communities. Young people have already started putting their words into practice through the various forums, actions, development programs, and even talking about the sustainable development goals. So with this, I would just urge us that we should be more responsible. We should take action in reducing our emission without retarding development. We must chart a new course to make sure that we focus on the 17th Sustainable Development Goal and work towards making sure that we meet the targets. Let climate change begins at home. Let us start the action, our action, the impact, everything, let it start from our home. As young person, we have the power to turn tides. So let's start to engage at the community level. We have all the actions, all the power, all the energy that we can put in place. African youth can no longer afford to be, we can no longer afford to be spectators of our future. So let us take action and put everything in place to work for what we want in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olumide. We have the power. I love that. And anything for us without us is not for us. Thank you so much. I want to go to the audience. We have a terrific audience coming to us from so many different places: Japan, Germany, Russia, right here in Kenya, Botswana. Thank you all for joining. And the questions are coming in. I'm going to take a couple of them now and just pose them to our panelists. Olumide, I'm going to come back to you actually. This question, you mentioned COP26, and someone is asking, what are your hopes for COP26?
Thank you very much. Thank you for that question, because I've been privileged to attend some COP for the past years. And I want to highlight two things that I think we need to be looking to as young person from Africa. Number one, how can we build African youth to shadow our negotiators towards COP26? Most of all these are negotiators, negotiate on behalf of us without us. So it is high time, young generation, young people from Africa, try as much as possible to shadow these people and and follow them up to understand what they're actually negotiating on our behalf. Secondly, we need to now start looking for a possible way to drive innovation across Africa that we can present in the global stage, even to the African Union, for them to understand that we have lovely innovation from local to higher level that we can present as an international, as a national solution for each country. For example, from my country, we have different, we have six geopolitical zones in Nigeria, and a lot of young people are coming up with local solutions to solve problems in line in renewable energy, upcycling, recycling, and what have you. How can we make sure that all these solutions are being attracted to our national governments to be able to invest and create more investment opportunity for more young? So COP, we should be looking towards how we can be part of that negotiation. We can shadow our negotiators and what they are negotiating on behalf of us, and start looking for a way to start telling them that we want to make you accountable for that campaign promises, for that promises you've given to us towards clean energy, towards a sustainable way of living. A very good example before I stop. We have a very big conversation in my country concerning the oil spillage. How can we start talking about how can we stop gas flaring? what are the negotiations you are putting in front on behalf of the people? Farmers cannot even go to farms again. Fishermen cannot fish again because there's no water. Everywhere is already spilled with oil. So it's high time for us to put ourselves together as young people to start telling our government, we need to follow you towards negotiation. We need to know what you are negotiating on behalf of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greta. I wanted to ask you a question that has come up, but also was asked of the others. What are the windows of optimism that you see that give you hope and make you keep going?
Where to start? I mean, I think the biggest source of optimism right now is that people are becoming more and more aware of this crisis. We are seeing that more and more people are starting to get enough and are starting to demand more of their leaders. And especially we can see that in Africa, that many, especially young people, are starting to stand up and demand a safe future, basically, and also a safe present. I think that's the biggest source of hope I have, and the fact that when enough people come together, that we can accomplish almost anything. And what we are waiting for now is for more and more people to start join our fight. This is a worldwide movement, and we have only just begun. So we have only just begun, and more is yet to come.
And boy, are you all doing a good job. Such a good point, Greta, that when people start standing up and you see that happening more and more, I think you all represent that in such wonderful ways. Thank you. Thank you for that. Liz, I want to come to you. There's a question that has been asked about how people can get involved, how students essentially can get involved. Are there networks, movements, and I think any of you, when you're responding, if there are movements and networks that people can get involved in around environmental sustainability, that would be great to know. People want to join something, and I think this is partly what you are inspiring all of you.
Great. The young people have definitely stepped up to the challenge, and there are so many networks and initiatives that young people are running to respond to the climate crisis. And I think all of these networks are around the world, and it is all about identifying the ones that you can clearly fit into, and identifying what is this challenge that really you want to change in your community? What is this thing that you have seen and you want to make sure that you're making a difference at the end of the day? Because I do believe all of these challenges really are connected with the environment. And maybe I would highlight a few of these groups, and I think some of them have already been mentioned. There is the network of the Fridays for Future, where young people have been school striking for the climate, and young people have been stepping up to call on action from the world leaders. And there are also initiatives, for example, I'd like to highlight in Kenya, the young environmentalists have come together to form the Kenya Environment Action Network. And this is a voice whereby the young people are saying that we want to work together to protect the environment. So we want to bring our energies together and also make sure that we are being heard enough, because at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, what does it take for our voices to be heard enough in our countries, in Africa, and around the world? So that is why these networks have been created, for these young voices to come together. And maybe we're not really voicing out enough. And that is why we are really having these networks to make sure that we are being heard. And I think also the other important thing is to also reach out to us, I would say, and we'll be able to also see other networks around us that you can be able to be part of. But also the other thing is to not be afraid to start up something also in your community, because it is the first step that you take that is going to make a difference at the end of the day. If you see a problem and no one is responding, please just go ahead and respond with whatever thing that you have. You don't need much resources. You don't need anyone to give you a go ahead. It is that overwhelming that you feel every day that calls you to take action at the end of the day. So if you feel disturbed, then you should really have that natural call to action to step up and do something for your community. And at the end of the day, when you get involved, you will also realize that you are not alone in this field. There are so many other young people that are stepping up to take action, and there are so many other young people who are fighting with you to secure a livable world now and a safe future.
Thank you, Liz. Vanessa, I wanted to ask you the question that is coming up that is terrific. How do we get youth educated on climate change so that the action they take is informed? You all seem to be so well informed, so on point all the time. How do we get more people well informed or educated, if you want to use, on climate issues?
Okay, thank you. I think this education really needs to start from schools, because like I mentioned before, the issue of climate change is, not taught as something, that is happening right now that we should be scared of. It's more like study, do your exams and pass and go to the next class. So I think a lot needs to be changed in the school curriculum to not only include climate change education, but to make students and children in general understand the connection that they have with nature at a very young age, and for them to be able to understand that without nature, then we cannot exist, because if we destroy nature, we destroy ourselves. But I think this education really needs to start in the schools. Schools need to go beyond climate change as a geography topic to a reality that is happening right now, and also, teaching it in a way that makes students, understand that they can do something about it through their voices, or through their platforms, or through their consumption ways, in what they wear or what they eat. I think it all needs to really start from school. I can say that many people I know and many people I've gone to school with, they really don't understand how much even their own consumption can harm the planet. Because when you talk about climate, what most people understand is planting trees, which is okay, but I think it goes beyond that. People need to understand that it goes beyond planting trees to also how we live our own lives, and that is really lacking in education. I think students should be taught to be in a better place of taking care of the planet, and not just to excel in school. And also another way, I think, is reaching out to communities. Not everyone is going to be on social media, not everyone is on Twitter, not everyone has access to a phone or to internet, so not everyone will see the activism that is going on online. So it's important to reach out to communities, especially in the rural areas where most of the people cannot access these things, and to communicate to them in the language which they understand, because language is also an issue in how we talk about climate change. Not everyone is going to understand the science facts of climate change. Not everyone will understand the degrees, the 1.5. They won't understand what it means. But in those communities, people will understand that because of climate change, the food we eat is being affected, the air we breathe is being affected, our water sources are becoming more scarce because of something called climate change. So I think even community reach out and teaching them to understand what climate change really is in the way that they understand it is very, very important. And also another way that we can educate more people is, now for those who can access these social media platforms, is to use our platforms for the planet and for the people to demand for change, to demand for justice, and to try and make, you know, this world a better place for everyone. Yeah, those are some of the things that I can, you know, think of when it comes to educating people about the climate issues.
Vanessa, terrific. So much information there. And I just want to invite anybody in the audience who has a network or knows how people can engage all of us. We all want to support you to join. I see already in the chat some very good exchanges, people putting in their networks that they know. Continue to do that. And we will collect all of these and send them out through our social media platforms. But such an important thing that we stand together, the message of solidarity coming through really, really strong. And I think that's such an important thing. What powerful reflections and stories, Liz, Vanessa, Olumide, Greta, you and Youba. I really wish we could continue with the questions, but I don't want us to lose, and we will come back to questions if we have time. But I want to move to hearing some reflections from Youba and also Greta, who've been just listening as well and processing, hearing some of these thoughts. I'll start with you, Youba. What do you take away from this conversation today?
I think this is great. And now I can definitely retire, because I retired 4 times and I have to come back because problem remain. But this really is a sense of optimism. And then to have Vanessa, Liz, and Olumide very well articulated on spot on the different issues. But I think that you touch on one aspect, this is crucial, fundamental, this education aspect. We have tried when the convention started more than 30 years ago, and then to work on Article 6 of the convention. That's education, information, awareness raising in a continuous basis, not on ad hoc basis. Education is very important, and then to use also the local language, and then to do that. That's very important. You don't need any donor to come to you and then to do the education. And also we have all kinds of social media. You go to any remote villages in Africa, you find people who cannot read and write, and then they have access to social media, and then you can get them information on that. And then this is a crucial element, and then you need to look at. Second aspect is that it's important, it's critical, it's crucial. You said negotiation. Negotiation is the end of the game. You have to start before the negotiation to do your homework. And then the homework is that, and then to see concretely what you need to be done. As I indicated, many people are talking actually about energy transition. And I saw on the chat when I said that we need to phase out the use of charcoal and firewood in Africa and then to move for electric cooking. With 300 watts, you can do any kind of cooking. It's possible. Scientifically, it has been demonstrated. Technically, it has been demonstrated. It's a matter of political will. If you are a political, because, you know, Liz indicated the forest. We are cutting the forest, and then we are putting the forest under the pot, and then do the cooking. And then we are destroying because of cutting the forest. And then just for the urban system also, we are doing that. And then some said, oh, this is complicated, not easy. As Nelson Mandela teaches, he said that nothing is impossible in life unless you start, you try. You know, back to 20 years, if somebody said that in a remote village in Kenya or in Uganda or in Mali or in Nigeria, an old lady will have a telephone and say, oh, this is jogging, that will never happen. But it happened. And those are things we have. And we need also to make pressure on policymakers. And Olumide, you indicated you are from Nigeria. And one of the most richest man in Africa, and he's part of the richest man in the world, is from Nigeria. This is Dangote. And Dangote is the one who's building cement factories everywhere in Africa. Cement is the most polluting industry in the oil industrial sector. There is a huge alternative than cement, because if you build cement factory, you build your house in cement, and then you are an average of 40 degrees. Over the year, you need air conditioning. And then as the large part of energy in Africa is coming from fossil, and then you will increase, you will have the lock-in. And you, the youth, you have to understand that the advantage of Africa is that we are not in a locking system around a part of the cooking aspect. So our future is open to absorb any new ideas, any innovations. And then those are some of the things we need to build on. And sorry to be here too long.
Thank you, Youba. I think you gave our panelists the compliment of the highest order. That you can retire is a compliment to them. Certainly I agree with that. Greta, I want to turn to you. What do you take away from this conversation today?
First of all, I want to say, please don't retire. We still need you. But exactly like you say, it is very encouraging to see all the motivated, committed people, especially young people, like we say, and it feels in a way that, yeah, we can relax because other people are doing it, but of course that should not be the case. I completely understand what you mean, but rather this should instead spike our motivation even more, and in order for us who are watching all these people like taking all this direction. And I think that what we have seen, that's a clear proof that you don't have to wait for anyone else to take action. Anyone can take action, and you are never too small to make a difference. And that it really proves what we have all been saying, that the power is really, the people are the ones who really have the power, and we just have to reclaim that power.
Yes, I think Greta's network has frozen. We'll come back to Greta and let her finish her last sentence. But I think you can all hear me. Greta, if you're still there, there you are. Sorry, Greta, go ahead, finish your last sentence. You were just finishing.
Yeah, sorry, I disappeared. Yeah, but young African voices are the future. I think I was down there, sorry.
That was great. No, we heard it all, and thank you so much. The expression you've given us, and you heard it here, no one is too small to make a difference. And I think what we are seeing is people are believing that, and that's really, really powerful. I agree with you, Youba. Please don't retire. We actually do still need you there. I'd like to close with an invitation to Liz, Olumide, and Vanessa. You are all in this arena fighting for a future you and all of us really crave. I'd like to invite you to close your eyes. I'm happy if you want to even turn off your cameras and listen to me off camera, because I need you to close your eyes and imagine the Africa you want to live in, say 10, 20, 30 years from now, the Africa you fight for today. Really take yourself there and take us there with you. Where are you? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell, taste, and touch? What does it feel like? What does it look like to be in that place? I'll give you a few minutes. I'll say it again. Imagine the Africa you want to live in, say 10, 20, 30 years from now. The Africa you fight for today. Really take yourself there and take us there with you. Where are you? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell, taste, and touch? What does it feel like? What does it look like to be in that place? I'll invite one of you at a time, and you can turn on and join as you please. Vanessa.
Thank you, Wanjira. The moment I closed my eyes, I just started to really see kids like playing, something like a park, and kids are playing and they're laughing and they're excited, and I could just feel an environment of peace and happiness, an environment of no fear about what could happen, to take away that happiness, or what could happen, the following day. So generally, I just saw kids play, run, and laugh out loud with no fear about anything.
Oh, beautiful. I want to go there too, Vanessa. I want to go there. Liz, what do you see? Take us there.
I was at the banks of the stream that was flowing just near my homestead, and I could see it flowing freely, and I could hear the bird songs. I could see the trees. I could feel the fresh breath. I could feel as though humanity was back in harmony with nature. And then I moved to the city, and I could see green, clean, and resilient cities where all of this non-motorized transport has been incorporated. I could see more vibrant green spaces where people are enjoying and having all of this fun. And I could see a lot of people really also engaging in restoration of the earth and standing up for the spaces which we have taken all of those years to protect and rebuild and regenerate. And this exactly is my vision for Africa. And I really hope that we can all do everything in our power to make this dream for Africa come true. And also make sure that really we are joining in efforts of what young people like me and many others, Vanessa, Olumide, are doing to make sure that they have this vision for Africa as well come into reality. And just to mention that the Green Spaces Beat also came in because this is a fight we have been in, trying to make sure that the cities in Nairobi, the spaces in Nairobi are green, clean, and resilient. And this has been through the Daima Green Spaces campaign to make sure that we are stepping up in protection of the green spaces and stepping up to make sure that everyone really can have a space where they can have recreation, a space where they can have some fun, a space where they are not afraid to breathe the air in the city because the transportation system has become sustainable. There's no more pollution coming from the cars. It's all a place that is safe, a place that I want to be in. Please do everything in your power to make this kind of Africa come true for me and many other young people who are fighting today.
Thank you, Liz. I want to go there too. Oh my goodness. Thank you very much for that vision. So powerful. Olumide, take us there.
Okay, I think my colleague have seen a lot, and I can say that I've seen what they've seen as well. But for me, let me just highlight so many future that I see in Africa. I can see investment in clean energy. I can see investment in energy efficiency. And I can see us addressing climate change health risk in Africa. I can see an Africa where we talk about improving community resilience and adaptive capacity. I can see a community that has been enhancing sustainable land use and forest management. I can see an Africa that focus mostly on promoting sustainable transports because that's the only way we can have fresh air for all. And one of the key things I can conclude by saying is conserving, protecting, and restoring nature for future generations is a must. And government must ensure that we too can live healthy and fulfilling lives. That's what I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Olumide. You all just paint such a beautiful Africa, quite frankly, the Africa we all want to live in. Joy is part of that, green spaces, and I know just how much you all work to make that possible. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and I wish we could go on and on and on. I hope those who unlock these possibilities, those who hold political office, those who hold power in our countries are listening, because we can do our part. Our youth activists are doing their part because they love their countries. They love what they do. They love their countries and want to see a better place. But we need you to do your part too. And I hope we can hold you accountable and ensure that we continue to push the needle. Thank you all for joining us today. Olumide, Vanessa, Liz, Greta, Youba, our deepest gratitude, really, for you being here today, sharing so passionately all you do. Wisdom truly lies within. There's a wonderful learning philosophy I've learned from an organization that I love called 6 Seconds, that all you represent the wisdom within yourselves, that instinct that you need to change the game, and your activism powerfully representing all of that. But here's one truth. Our stories do connect us, and I hope that this discussion will renew your commitment, I know it does mine, to support each other, to amplify each other's voices, to shine the spotlight on each other, connect our journeys, because we will always be stronger together in this storm. And in the words, Liz shared them, inspired by Professor Wanjira Mathai's activism, each of us can make a difference, and together we are a force. I want to leave you with those words and say, fight the good fight, continue to fight the good fight, stay the course, and let's finish this race. To all our wonderful audience members today, thank you for joining us from all over the world. You have been tremendous and giving the audience that we really were hoping for to this. And I know that it's been recorded and it will be shared. Please share it far and wide. I also want to give a great thank you to the partners. There's always people behind the scenes who make this possible. Never is it possible on our own. I want to say first that we are streaming live on Facebook, on Now This News, on Now This Politics, Now This Earth, and that the people who really made this possible. I first want to thank the board of the Wanjira Mathai Foundation and the team behind all the work that goes on at the foundation, the Greenbelt Movement International, and the movement that really has made green spaces such a natural vocabulary for all of us. Our media partners, Media Partner Now This, Campaign Collective, and Purpose Climate Lab. We thank you tremendously for your support today. I wish you all a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Thank you for giving us the time today. And on behalf of Liz, Vanessa, Olumide, Greta, and Youba, we say our deepest gratitude. Thank you all, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. That was excellent. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Youba.
Bye.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Olumide. Thank you, Greta.